Okay. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending upon where you're located. Again, my name is Kyle Hamilton. I'm a sales engineer with Flycast, here to provide the overview of BMC Client Management today. And to start off, we're going to be looking at the Client Management Administrative Console. I'm talking about really the core capabilities of what client management offers, especially as Rich mentioned, how it relates to remote workers. The first core component and really the starting point for everyone is just getting control and getting visibility to your assets, understanding what you have, where it's located, how it's configured. So BMC Client Management does that in two different ways. Number one, you have an agentless scan that can be set up on a schedule, so you can sweep your network and create that master list that identifies what you have out there connected to the network, whether it's a desktop or whether it's a switch or printer. As long as it has a heartbeat, that agentless sweep will be able to identify that and let you know that device is out there and where it's located in your network. Now from there, you may want to deploy an agent to those devices to be able to manage that device, remote control, from patch to software installations, patch deployments. And that can be done either automatically as that agentless scan takes place, be able to push those agents out to all your Windows, Linux, and Mac OS devices. Those three agents exist. Or you can use the resulting list that you get returned from that agentless scan to be able to go through and selectively deploy that agent out to those devices so that you then can control them and begin to manage them. Now, one of the architectural features that supports the remote users and supports an idea or concept within client management called Service Anywhere is what we call our internet relay. So that you can have the ability to manage the remote users, to be able to collect the inventory, to be able to remote control, to be able to patch, regardless of whether they're in the office or whether they're at home or an airport terminal, hotel lobby, wherever that may be, so that you don't lose touch and you don't lose, the ability to manage that device as it moves around. So you have the ability to set that internet relay up. So if you've got those external users that need to communicate or they need to get that software package to, installed or pulled down, then they have the ability and they have a relay point to be able to communicate with when they are outside of the network. You can also use those relays within your network as a way to distribute the application throughout your environment, wherever you have remote offices, remote sites. This gives you the ability to leverage those relay points as distribution points for anything that's being delivered to those endpoint devices. And there's a collection point for all the information and data that we're pulling back from those devices so that you can put those relay points closest to those groups of users so that you're pushing everything across the LAN versus the WAN as much as possible. Now, once those agents are installed on that device and they appear here within this topology map, then I have the ability to be able to interact with that desktop agent. So for any of those devices in this topology, then I can drill down into the device and get detailed hardware, software configuration information, as well as a view of that device's compliance, which comes from there's a specific module within client management called compliance that allows you to create policies, whether they be hardware policies or software policies around your device, around your inventory. So it'll help you to highlight and pinpoint misconfiguration issues and out of compliance devices very easily and quickly versus having to dig through the inventory manually to spot those issues. Now, on top of the information that it collects directly from the device, You also have the ability to input and track other life cycle information, whether it's cost and depreciation, for tracking the financial side, as well as important dates like support, warranty, contract dates that you need to be notified and alerted to, prior to those dates arriving, as well as being able to track, other back-end processes like invoicing and purchase requests and things of that nature, so that you can track the full life cycle, both the hardware, software configuration, and be able to track and manage, time and service, and have it be able to notify you of those important, dates, whether it be, support dates or warranties, as well as allowing you to calculate things like depreciated value and book value if you are managing the financial side. Now, at the same time that you can drill into inventory of any device, you also have the ability to remotely control the device, whether that be through a full remote control session. If you open up and see the user screen, there's also direct access tools that allow you to bypass the screen and simply go direct to the device, whether that be to issue a command, whether reboot or lock the device or wake it up, or whether that be to go in and make some kind of physical change, whether that's making some kind of an update or change to the device's registry, or starting and stopping a service or a process. This gives you the ability to go in and work with that device and make those changes and corrective fixes, and save the, maybe the precious bandwidth that's going to be eaten up just passing the screen data back and forth. And you can do the remote control here for the client that we're looking at, and this can be accessed and utilized from any device as well. So not only can you manage the remote users at home, but you don't have to be sitting on the client management server in order to be able to access this console. You can open it up from any browser and be able to use the client you see here. And there's also a browser client. It does not offer all of the admin features, but for users that aren't going to be in there, deploying patches and creating software packages and operating system images, but those that just need to have visibility to that configuration data, as well as the ability to remote control those devices, then the web console provides a lightweight way for them to be able to, get visibility into the details of the device and to be able to remotely support users all through a simple browser-based interface. Now, in addition to being able to discover and manage your traditional endpoints, desktops, laptops, servers, client management also covers the mobile device spectrum, or MDM area. So at the same time you're doing discovery of desktops and laptops, you're also doing tablets and phones and other mobile devices, watches, whatever may be bringing into the environment. So they get visibility into the mobile inventory as well. And it does provide the ability for you to be able to manage all your iOS devices through profiles that will allow you to do things like enforce security parameters and restrict application usage in terms of what they can and can't run, what they can use, and they use the camera, can they take video and things of that, can they access iTunes, so that you can lock the mobile devices down, be able to control them in the same manner you do for traditional desktops and laptops, to be able to manage those devices in cases where maybe they walk out the back door or they're lost. So the ability to create and issue mobile commands to those devices so that you can wipe corporate data, lock devices, and post messages if they're requesting that user bring that device back, gives you the ability to work with those mobile devices, again, whether they're on your wireless network within your environment or whether they're connected via the internet from home, being able to manage those devices in the exact same way. Now, at the same time that we do all this collection of inventory information and collection of hardware and software configuration data, we also have the ability to deploy out to the endpoints. So, first, let's see if we, bear with me 1 minute.
It's always got to be something that wants to happen technical on some of these presentations, isn't there?
It always is. Never fails.
Yep.
So you'll see this is, I'll take the opportunity since we're here to actually show you what I was talking about, being able to access this from anywhere. So I can simply go to, instead of going to the web console that we just looked at, I can actually go to the console page. And this takes me to an area where I can kick off that Java client that we were just looking at. So I don't have to have anything installed. And because this is using, because this question comes up a lot, this is using the new Java Web Start installer. So it does not require and is not dependent on Java being on the machine. It's entirely self-contained. So you don't have issues with Java versions when they update or any kind of incompatibility issues. And that way anybody can access the console from any location. When you kick off the Web Start, it creates that Java file that allows you to access this login. And that's what takes us into that administrative console that we were looking at. Now, where I was going with this is to be able to start looking at, actually pushing something to the endpoints and looking at patch management as the first, type of deployment that you might do. And this gives you the ability to patch a wide variety of third-party patches as well as the Windows environment, so that you're not stuck, having to deal with Adobe and Java and Flash and Firefox and Google and things like that independently and manually, as you do in many cases. But to be able to patch things like Adobe and Flash the same way you might use Windows Update today for your Windows devices, but extend that beyond Windows into Citrix and Yahoo Messenger and a large list of third-party apps, so that you're able to manage a much broader range of the desktop environment in an automated fashion. As I mentioned, same way you may use Windows Update today, the same kind of automation and the ability to set it up and let it run. And you'll see we can even go in and patch things like Windows Update servers and SCCM and things like that on the Windows side. So it certainly covers that Windows environment, but it gives you a much broader range of applications. Once I define within a patch job the type of patches I want to manage and the applications I want to manage, then I can define a schedule which I want those patches to deploy in, and then of course assign a target group or a target list for these patches. And this is where you can either create groups, devices, and groups of devices within client management, or you can also pull those things in or synchronize those from a directory server. So if you've got organization and structure built into the directory that you can leverage, that can save you a lot of time in having to recreate groups and build those within client management, but simply being able to pull all that straight out of the directory. So if I want to patch, departments within my environment, like development and finance, then I can assign those by using those AD groups And once I create that patch job, it'll provide me with a console that I can use to then manage and view the deployment. So it'll show me all the selections I made, any patches that may be in the process of installing or downloading, and then of course the devices that I've assigned to that patch job, so I can manage and monitor as it begins to roll out. Every time I go through and create another job, maybe with a different schedule or managing a different set of patch or a different set of applications, it'll create a console for each. So again, I can manage the deployment and track and view the progress as it begins installing, so that I can watch for those failures and those devices that may be having problems. Now, on top of being able to deploy to out of the box, or I should say Active Directory groups, you also have the ability to create groups within client management, and most customers will typically create some groups on top of Active Directory to give you the ability to break down and assign things based on, like I said, for instance, what type of operating system it has. So I can create groups using queries so that now I can easily say deploy this patch to all my Windows devices, or deploy it to all my desktop machines or my laptops. So this gives me the ability to add to those Active Directory groups, so I can create some groupings that may not be a part of organizational structure, but you want to be able to create those groups and leverage those nonetheless. So when it comes time to deploying, so that finishes. I'll give that a second. So that I can now go in and use that when I go in to deploy an application or to deploy an operating system. So you'll see those device groups, and you have the ability to do the same thing with user groups as well. Most customers don't, assign policies and assign patches and things like that to users, so it follows them around the environment. But you have that option, same ability to be able to bring that data in from Active Directory as well. So you've got all your user information on your user accounts, as well as all the devices that you pull in. Yep. And it looks like it froze again. All right. So in deploying applications, only difference is they're not automatically getting those applications downloaded and deployed out to the users automatically like a patch job. You got to have the CD or the DVD, or you go to the vendor and you get the download so that you can build that software package to deploy it. And if we get connected here, we will see that. I guess we'll take the opportunity while this is, and you know what, I actually may have two of these running. Rich, I was going to say, do we have any questions?
As of right now, I don't have any questions, but folks, there's so many of you guys on here. Definitely send us your questions. Any questions about the client management tool? I know that some of you are probably looking at it maybe to help out with your remote worker situation, or for whatever the reason that might be. Please go ahead and ask the questions. Kyle's here live to answer those questions for you. I encourage you to type them in the questions section of this webcast. Please go ahead and type those in. I'll read them off to Kyle as soon as you put them in there. And Kyle, I'm going to blame this on all the slow internet going on everywhere because of the strain of the remote workers. That's what I'm going to blame this on.
Well, I'll tell you what, while it's going, let me, since that is popped up, let me do this. Let me jump in here and talk for a moment about the breakdown of the modules. So when we talk about client management, it is available as a suite where you see all these 5 modules are all included. It can also be purchased, I guess you call it a la carte, where you may just be looking to collect that inventory and do discovery, and remote control. You know, your work from home users. You might not be looking to deploy operating systems or manage policy and compliance. So you could, you know, selectively pick which options you want if you don't need certain modules. Now, this also gives you a view of what we talked about when we talked about the idea of service anywhere, where you can have those remote users with those relay points that you see here, like the internet relay that's allowing those users at home to get the software, the patches, send their data up, as well as those internal relay points, so that you don't have this big hub and spoke or wheel where everybody's just grabbing things from one central point. They can, you know, always be collecting and sending information to the closest relay point to them. So it makes for a very efficient environment. So you don't have to re-architect your network to be able to support those road warriors, which in many cases, and from using these tools, or were using these tools internally before, and now everybody's outside the network, that typically requires some infrastructure changes, and sometimes ones that the network team is reluctant to make, in terms of having to open things up suddenly to be able to enable those features. So that internet relay is important because it's something that can easily be deployed to any device that you want to designate to be that relay, so that you don't have to re-architect your network and change your entire environment to be able to suddenly switch from everybody in the office to everybody at home. Now I'm gonna give this one more try. Let's make sure it's not running there.
Folks, definitely type your questions in. Kyle is happy to answer any questions that you have. And we have a good group of you on here today. I'm very happy to have you here, and we'd like to get any questions answered for you that we can. So by all means, type those questions in. I'll read them off to Kyle. It looks like Kyle's got it up and running again.
We made it back in. So what I was mentioning about software packages is this is a two-step process. Number one, to build the package. So to go through and this gives you the ability to put all the install options on that software, especially in cases where the vendor doesn't provide any kind of install switches or commands, to be able to put a wrapper around it so that you can define, you know, where it gets installed and how it deals with existing files, and, you know, exactly how you want that application to be laid down on that device. What you're left with at the end of that process is a software package that's sitting in what we call the package factory, or that library. The library in and of itself, just it's like a file storage. The package is just sitting there. If I want to do something with it, then I have a distribution wizard where I can go through, and that's, I have a lock to you. Oh, there we go. So I got software packages that are now sitting here. Here's Adobe Acrobat MSI install, and here's a custom package for deploying Firefox. And you'll notice when I look at these software packages, part of the definition on that package is, where are those relay points? Where am I going to store this on the network? Do I want to push it to all the relays? Do I only want to send it to one remote office, or, you know, just a couple of sites that need it? Does that need to go everywhere? So I can, you know, stage this application on those relay points, and then be able to go through and use those device groups and user groups that we talked about before, so that if I want to deploy Firefox out to all of my desktop machines, then I can come in here and select the desktop group, and based on a query, and it'll create a similar console through the patch job where we looked at, where I can then monitor as it starts to wake up all those agents and start deploying that application. And then it'll create some charts and graphs to document those updates as well. Now, when you actually take a package if I wanted to run through the distribution wizard, and that's where I'll go through and actually select a group of devices and push that package out just like a patch job. What it actually does is it creates what's called an operational rule. And if I look here under this menu, I'll actually see those two pieces of software, Adobe and Firefox, listed right here under the operational rules section. So this is what actually gets created is a command, an operational rule, simply, in this case, a simple command called install package. It points to the Adobe Acrobat file that's sitting up just above there, that MSI install. And it now gives me the ability to assign this operational rule to a group of devices. What this does is now I can simply say deploy Acrobat Reader, and if I want to go in and maybe make an adjustment to this, and this is where client management gives you a lot of flexibility and power, but it doesn't require any skills that like PowerShell. One of the customers have, it's boatloads of PowerShell, shell scripts, bash scripts, what have you. This gets you out of having to create and manage shell scripts and bash scripts. And then it provides a library of commands. There's thousands out of the box, and then you can add to them as well. There's a process to add those via XML. But this is essentially allows you to create the commands that you want to run for the fixes and installs on the endpoint devices, but without having to script those things out. So to be able to go in and work with, the file system, if I need to update, delete, create, modify the file system in some way, or I need to go in and stop and start a process, or execute some program on the endpoint. I can simply leverage these commands and input the parameters for those commands in these windows, and then that gives me the ability to then go in and make adjustments or changes to my software install. So maybe I install Adobe Acrobat Reader, and then I need to do a couple of other things beyond just the installation of the software. So if I want to go in and modify the registry, this is where I go in and put in all the registry information, and maybe make an update that removes the desktop shortcut or hides the system tray icon, modify that install in some way. So this gives you a large library of commands to be able to work with the device. Maybe I need to send them some kind of message box to let them know what we're doing, and give them some options to delay things or postpone. So I can stack these commands up, and then I can place those in sequence along with the original install. So now if I want to show them, number one, that hey, we're about to install Adobe Acrobat, then I can move that message box up to the first step, so it pops the window up. I can provide the information before we actually do the install. Then maybe I run disk clean, clean up the hard drive and temp files, and the download directories and cache directories and things of that nature, and then go in and create the desktop shortcut or disable some feature. So, and it gives you the ability to, and flexibility to be able to create very complex sets of commands for fixes, as well as allowing you to customize installs very easily without having to get into scripting and things of that nature. An example would be, I'll show it using compliance as an example, because compliance is where I mentioned you create the different rules that you use to look at your inventory to see if you have devices that are misconfigured or non-compliant. So I create a set of policies or rules like you see here, and it'll look much like the operational role we just looked at, where I go in and instead of adding commands, I'm adding basically building a query. I'm creating some criteria here to say, if the host name is XYZ and the IP address is in this subnet and they're running this version of Windows. So I go through and I can browse all that collected information, right? Everything we've collected from the device, hardware, software, you name it. And I build this query so that when I click this results tab, and hopefully it doesn't take too long. When I click the results tab, it's going to immediately go through my inventory and it's going to show me everybody in inventory that meets that criteria. So in this case, we're looking at the firewall installed and enabled. So it's going through and it looks at inventory and it's going to pull out every user. It's actually going to pull all of them out, but it'll allow me then to sort those and say, show me everybody that's non-compliant and show me everybody that doesn't have their firewall turned on, so that I can easily pinpoint those users that are misconfigured. Then once you've got the rules created, when you're looking at that inventory for that individual device, you'll have that compliance tab and you'll see the green check or the red X. It's going to let you know whether they either are compliant or non-compliant with that particular rule. You can also build dashboards directly into the compliance management module so that you can view compliance across the enterprise versus just viewing it one machine at a time or one desktop at a time. So when I go in and create these different rules, it says they have to have antivirus software installed and it has to be up to date within the last 30 days, and they have to have their spyware up to date and things of that nature. Then I can go in and build dashboards that'll show me anybody who doesn't have AV installed, anybody who hasn't installed the latest DAT files, things of that nature, and I can pull reports. And I can even automate those dashboards out to managers or administrators, executives that may be looking for that data or wanting that data. Now, the other thing you can do is once you create these compliance policies, is you can use these to then work your magic with your operational rules on. So once I create a policy that says everybody has to have their firewall installed and enabled, and it'll tell me, all right, this group of users is non-compliant, then that's where I can go in with my operational rules and create a command to go in there and turn on the firewall and just simply say target all of the users that are non-compliant with my firewall rule. So in a sense, by creating the compliance rule or the compliance policy, you're creating a group of devices. It's grouping those users together for you, much like all my Windows OSs or all my desktops or laptops, which are done with simple queries. You're doing much the same thing here, but it's also enabling you to easily get those dashboard views and the report views out, so that you can hand it to a compliance manager or somebody that's looking for that data. And it is maybe, Rich, it may be all that traffic out there today.
I'm telling you, it's something, but whatever we're doing here, our audience keeps growing. So folks, we keep adding people and it's great to see that. So ask some questions. Kyle would be happy to answer questions, especially now that we're experiencing these issues with the links. So I'm sure it's because of all those people trying to utilize these tools or utilizing the web.
While that's going, I'll go ahead and talk about the last piece of the deployment picture. As we talked about application deployment, as well as patch deployment. And that would be OS deployment. So if you're doing any kind of OS imaging on your network, client management can help you deploy those images. And again, this goes the same thing for being able to work with users at home. Depending upon what kind of connection they have, it may take a while, but this will give you the ability to push OS to at home on the couch if need be. It will also allow you to use, if you got existing images today, great. we can use those WIM images, sysprep, maybe they're ghost images, or any other proprietary ISOs. We can take those images and simply import those into the client management library and just use client management and the agents and the relays as a way to efficiently deploy your existing images and schedule those and push them out. Or client management can actually create the images as well. Same, I mentioned, now it doesn't have the ability to create the ghost images. We can use your ghost images, but it can create the sysprep and the WIM image, or if you just want to push the executable out, just run the executable, so that you can build a library of operating system images, just like you build a library of applications that you're going to push, just much larger. With the one additional added option of being able to not only push that out to a device or a group of devices, much like the other two, but to also provide a boot menu or a Pixie menu on the endpoint. So if you're walking around the environment, or if you're that user that's at home, and this is becoming more and more common, even in the last couple of weeks, where users at home may have some kind of issue, desktop application issue, and rather than bothering with even trying to troubleshoot it, in many cases just blasting the image down to that user, or in this case that I'm mentioning, allowing the user to simply reboot their laptop and boot up. They have to be able to go in their BIOS and boot up to that Pixie boot, but that would then give them a menu right there at boot time that would give them a listing of all of those images that are available in that library, so they can actually pick from the library at boot time versus pushing it, actually pulling it down from the endpoint. So if you're walking around in the environment and spot a problem or need to re-image, or even a brand new machine, maybe you just unbox, that's your way to simply plug it into the network port, go up to the Pixie boot, select that Windows 10 image or whatever it is, and be able to blast it out or pull it down from the endpoint, versus doing everything, through the admin console and pushing it out. Just depends on whether you're dealing with one machine, or whether you're going to have to walk around and do that Pixie boot on 1,000. That's where you're probably going to come in and set that up as an OS deployment project in the console.
Oh, this thing is really really going slow today. They must really be throttling things back.
Yeah, and I hate to kill it because I'm afraid it won't. It might eventually close, but then it wouldn't get logged in again like we were before if I do.
Yeah, I have a feeling that this is happening across the board. I've had intermittent service here in Florida as well, so it's I think that everything's probably getting strained by all this stuff that's happening. Maybe.
Well, and I will say that this is a good example of that architecture slide that I showed, in that I'm currently sitting at my home office in lockdown in Dallas, Texas. The server that we're currently looking at the admin console running on is running in a data center out in San Francisco on the West Coast. So the server's far away, and then the endpoints, like the endpoint looked at remote control and looked at the inventory for, those are in another data center somewhere in Oregon. So from where I am to the server to these client machines, we are actually making several internet hops across the US. I'm not running this as a local VM or anything like that, so there very well could be some type of delay out there. I just don't know. I can say this is the first time I've seen this.
It's one of those things. I'm sure it's being overutilized. This is crazy. Well, folks, this is a great time to ask questions. I mean, obviously, there's some interest here. There's so many of you have joined us today. and the audience keeps growing as we go. So by all means, go ahead and type your questions in there.
They're probably logging in just to see if it's still hung up from the last time. Let's see. Let's see if we get lucky here.
Yeah, this isn't the only software that seems to be having issues. Some of the other things that we use here have had issues today, so it's definitely not these guys.
Yeah, see, the web interface is where, and I guess I'll take advantage of this last minute or two since that's still running. One of the latest advancements, one of the latest enhancements in this version, we're looking at 12.9, is the ability for remote control on request, agentless remote control. So again, when you're talking about remote workers, they may be using their own desktop at home. So they may not have the SCCM agent or LAN desk or whatever it is you may be using today, Dell case. And it's not going to be on their desktop at their home, and they're probably not wanting to install something like that, maybe on a personal computer. This gives you the ability to remote control those users by creating a session on demand. Essentially, I specify, it both supports Windows and Mac, so work on both, and then I create a package. And what that does is, I could say, session, with Rich, and I can then send Rich an email that's going to give him some information, and it'll actually give him, when he clicks on the link, it'll give him a token. And when Rich clicks on that link, he's going to read that token back to me, and that will allow me to initiate, it'll open up that remote control session to him. It won't leave anything installed on the device. There won't be anything in the control panel when you close the session, but I can go in and remote control a device just like I can one that is, on the network and has the agent on it, but without having to worry about having the agent installed. So that's something that you can easily take advantage of, in a remote environment where you may be having to support users that, maybe using computers that aren't corporate owned or corporate issued. So with that, I know we're right at the 45 or now 46 mark. So Rich, I guess with that, I will stop my piece and turn it back over to you for wrap up.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Kyle. I appreciate this presentation. I'm sure those of you that are on the webinar today, I hope you've got a lot out of it. And if you have any questions, by all means, please take the time to reach out to us at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. By all means, give us a email at info@flycastpartners.com. We'll answer you that way as well. Give us a couple business days, or go chat with us live on our website. We have live IT experts or people that know what they're talking about anyway on our website Monday through Friday during normal business hours. They'll be happy to answer any questions that you have or get you the information you're looking for. By all means, reach out to us. That's what we're here for. We know a lot of you are going through some difficult times dealing with the additional remote worker situation, and we do provide services to help out with that, as well as software that can help with that. So we look forward to hearing from you. And thank you for this information, Kyle. I very much appreciate it. I'm sure our audience appreciated it as well. We know you're a busy man.
Well, thank you, and everybody have a great day, and everybody stay safe.
Everybody stay safe out there and have a great weekend if you can. And until our next webinar, we'll see you then.